Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you about a free 3-act worksheet to help you structure your story. Whether you're a plotter or a pantser, a novelist, or short fiction writer, this 3-act worksheet will help you navigate your material and even begin each new story with a better plan. Download yours at nancypanuccio.com/act. Stop getting stuck in the middle of your draft. Go grab this free worksheet, nancypanuccio.com/act. When you're revising a scene, ask, are these characters aligned or at odds? Does each line of dialogue push against the other in some way? What emotional energy is each character bringing into the exchange? What is each character wanting or expecting? Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and book coach. Each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let's begin. Dialogue can do so much to create narrative tension in your story. It reveals character, it creates conflict, it propels the plot forward. When it works, it feels alive, like you're overhearing real people with real stakes. But when it doesn't work, it feels manufactured, too on the nose, or worse, completely flat. And that makes it easy to skim or forget. It can even cause readers to abandon your story. When dialogue is at its best, it does more than sound realistic. It works on multiple levels. It's purposeful, it's full of tension, it's layered with subtext, and it pulls the reader down the page. Even a simple exchange is exciting to read. It sounds natural, but it's not there to fill space. It's there to reveal, to provoke, to hold tension just long enough for the reader to feel it and want more. So today I'm sharing 3 essential tips to help you write dialogue that's both lean and loaded. So let's get right to it. Tip number 1, make every line earn its place in your story. Writers often try to make dialogue feel authentic by replicating how people actually talk. Filler, small talk, or long meandering exchanges where characters talk about the everyday before they get to something meaningful. The intent is to make their characters sound more realistic. For example, married couples might discuss what to make for dinner, whose turn it is to take the dog out, or whether that weird noise in the car is getting worse. And teens might go on about what someone wore to school, or a play-by-play of a TikTok video they already sent to their friend. That's fine if it serves the story, but most of the time, the dialogue is filler that you don't need. Because here's the thing, dialogue is not transcription. If you wrote down a real conversation, word for word, it would be full of backtracking, filler, tangents, and repetition. It would probably be polite, but not charged with tension or character revelation. In fiction, readers don't have the patience for all of that. Your job is to distill the conversation, to capture the rhythm, tone, and emotional cadence of real speech without replicating all the clutter. That means short, rhythmic exchanges, interruptions, sentence fragments, and most importantly, emotional undercurrent. Great dialogue moves quickly beat by beat. It creates momentum by trusting the reader to lean into what's unsaid and feel the tension between the lines. the tension between the characters. Here's an example. In this exchange, the topic is tea, but what they're really talking about is estrangement. Maya stood just inside the doorway, unsure if she should sit or wait to be invited. Her father didn't look up from the kettle. You still take milk in your tea? I stopped, she said, years ago. He nodded slowly, eyes still on the steam rising from the spout. Right, thought maybe you'd outgrow that bitterness. You'd know something about bitter. I'm not trying to fight, he said softly. She stepped further into the kitchen. Good, she said. You'd lose. So every line is short, loaded, and tense. No one's explaining themselves. No one's laying out the backstory. The story lives between the lines. So how did this serve the story? Every line has dual meaning, surface and subtext. The narration gives room for silence, tension, and power shifts. No exposition is needed to tell us they're estranged. It's all in the air. The emotional cadence matches the restrained grief and anger between them. The dialogue works because it's a surface level topic, the tea, that becomes a metaphor for their emotional dynamic. The dialogue is tight, no wasted words. They're not explaining anything to one another. They're being indirect. There's subtext. Maya's not talking about tea. She's talking about being abandoned. It captures their power dynamic. Maya is guarded, her father tentative. It creates dramatic tension and makes the reader want to know what happened between them. Will they repair it? So this is a scene doing multiple jobs. It's not just talk, it's story. So when you revise a scene, look at your dialogue and ask, can I trim this to the emotional core? Does this sound like people talking at each other or trying to get something from each other? Where's the tension? You want to let your dialogue sound natural, but be curated for rhythm, clarity, and charge. The best dialogue doesn't ramble, it lands. Great dialogue doesn't sound like real-life conversation, it captures the essence of it. So instead of writing dialogue where both characters are saying exactly what they mean or starting off with small talk, aim for tension between what each person wants. Trim the fat. You want to jump into the heat of the exchange. Pare everything down to the essentials. If a line doesn't reveal character, build tension, or move the story forward, cut it. Ask yourself, what's the tension in this moment? What's the friction? Tight, intentional dialogue keeps your reader leaning in. Okay, on to tip number 2. Let characters speak at cross purposes. Often writers will use dialogue to rehash what already happened or to deliver the plot. So instead of the characters acting out the action in real time, the whole story unfolds in dialogue. But dialogue is not about conveying information. It's about revealing character dynamics. In strong scenes, there's a shift in the balance of power. One character wants something, the other wants or expects something else, and both try to get the upper hand. One character might want connection, the other wants to avoid a confession. One wants to confront, the other wants to keep the peace. The emotional misalignment is what makes dialogue dynamic. Here's an example from Who Will Run the Frog Hospital by Lori Moore. Sometimes Daniel and I argue about the 60s. He is 9 years older than I am and knows that time better than I, or differently. There's a real age difference between us, he says. Age, schmage, I reply. Unfortunately, there's also a real schmage difference. We made the 60s, he says, speaking in generational we that excludes me. We made the counterculture. You were 12 years old. But we inherited it, I say. And as children, we made ourselves around it, with it. We hung our own incipients on politics. The counterculture got on the ground floor with us as children. It was the wood we were built with. We used to watch you guys, the 18 and 19-year-olds, on LSD at the public beach or playing Duck, Duck, Goose in Horse Hearts Park with your beads and long flowing Indian smocks. But then we got to be that age and we went to the park or to the lake, and there wasn't a duck or a goose or a hit of acid anywhere. There was only Ford pardoning Nixon. Christ, snorts Daniel. But once upon a time, it had been all we knew, I say. Rebellion, revolution, and all those songs that went with them. We ice skated to eve of destruction. The Western world, it is exploding. And we do these little spins and turns. Or something like that, I say. But still, it was ours, he says. It came from inside of us, not you. Yes, you made it. But as a result, it was a thing outside of you. You could walk away from it. And you did. We couldn't, you see. It was in us. And when it was no longer out there in the world itself, it left us stranded, confused, betrayed, masturbating and doomed little outlaws. Masturbating and doomed little outlaws? Sure. What are you talking about? You can't use the 60s like this. You can't use the 60s to explain yourself to yourself. Okay, so when you're revising a scene, ask, are these characters aligned or at odds? Does each line of dialogue push against the other in some way? What emotional energy is each character bringing into the exchange? What is each character wanting or expecting? And as always, you want to cut what doesn't carry tension. Don't let your characters rehash what the reader already knows. Let the dialogue play with the friction between their goals. It can be playful. It doesn't need to be combative. Characters have different views about the world, different philosophies, ideologies, expectations, or world experiences. Put your characters together and let things clash. When characters are at cross purposes, every line contains implication, resistance, and power shifts. Dialogue is a dance, not a data exchange. You want to make sure your dialogue is shaped for the characters, not the reader. Okay, moving on to tip number 3. Let subtext do the work. In powerful dialogue, what's not said is often more important than what is. Characters don't always speak their truth directly. In fact, they often avoid it, deflect it, or bury it under sarcasm, silence, or small talk. That's where the tension lives. Subtext is the layer of meaning that runs beneath the words. Think of dialogue as the surface of a lake. Subtext is the current underneath. You don't always see it, but it's what gives the moment shape, weight, and movement. Okay, here's another example from Who Will Run the Frog Hospital. This scene takes place in Paris between Barry and her husband, who she realizes she no longer loves. I'm not really looking forward to going home, I say now. Really? I feel disconnected these days, in the house, in town. The neighbors say, hello, how are you? And sometimes I say, oh, I'm feeling a little empty today. How about you? You should get a puppy, he says sleepily. A puppy? Yeah, it's not like the cat. A puppy you can take walks around the neighborhood and stop and smile and say, ooh, look, what's wrong with your puppy? What is wrong with my puppy? Worms, I think. I don't know. You should have taken him to the vet weeks ago. You're so mean. I'm sorry I'm not what you bargained for, Daniel murmurs. I stop and think about this. Well, I'm not what you bargained for either, so we're even. No, he says faintly, you are. You are what I bargained for. Okay, so the real issue, the problems in the marriage, is never directly named, but we feel it immediately. This is how real tension builds in dialogue, by trusting the reader to catch what's not being said. So instead of thinking, what do they need to say here? Ask, what are they trying not to say? What are they hiding, implying, avoiding, or pushing for? Try writing a scene where the characters say one thing but mean another. Let the tension live beneath the words. And remember, characters don't always answer questions directly. They deflect. They change the subject. They interrupt. The real thrill of reading dialogue is in filling in what's not said. This way, the reader gets to participate. Writing strong dialogue is less about mimicking speech and more about crafting an emotional current that runs underneath the words. It serves the main story problem. Too often, dialogue is written to dispense information to the reader. You want to make sure it's serving the characters instead. So, to recap, tip number 1, make every line matter. Don't write exactly how people talk. Capture the essence of how they talk. Capture how they sound. Tip number 2, let them talk across purposes. Let the balance of power shift. That creates great tension in a scene. And tip number 3, focus on what's not being said and get it aslant. Let subtext drive the exchange. And one last bonus tip, read your dialogue aloud. If it feels unnatural to say, it probably needs a tweak or two. You don't need fancy tricks or witty one-liners, just a clear sense of who your characters are, what they want, and what they're hiding. Let that be your guide. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.